Hello everyone and welcome back to the Filled with Flesh show. We are so happy to be back, and Molly, we did just get back from vacation, didn't we?
Sure did, yeah. We are freshly home.
Yes, I hope you can tell how refreshed we are.
We look so tan. No, I did. I always use a ridiculous amount of sunscreen, so no tan, but believe me, I was in the sun.
Well, I'm a little jealous because I went down to Tennessee and we did not have sun. We had clouds and thunderstorms, and it wasn't really pleasant, but you were down in the Carolinas, right?
Yes, so we went to South Carolina. My husband's uncle and aunt have a beautiful home in Pawleys Island.
Aww.
So that was so nice. We were with his cousins and his siblings and their kids, and just walked by the beach. It was really lovely.
And it sounds like you had good weather.
Yeah, we had one near hurricane sweep through, one tornado siren, but actually made the next morning for an amazing beach walk.
Oh, okay.
Because kind of brings up onto shore, but the shells, and so that was actually kind of cool the next day.
Nice.
So yeah, what did you do?
Well, I went down to visit a friend who lives outside of Nashville, and we just caught up. I haven't been able to see her for a year and a half now. And in fact, last time I saw her, you were with me.
Yes.
And, you stayed at her home too.
Beautiful home, beautiful person.
Yes, beautiful person. I miss her terribly. It's hard when a really close friend moves away.
I don't like it.
No, I don't either. And even with modern technology, it just isn't the same as sitting there face to face and in the morning in your jammies.
Yes,
having
with
a cup of
coffee.
tea.
That's my
and
favorite.
coffee.
It is. I love it.
Me
I'm
too.
glad you got to do that.
Yeah, me too. So when you look back on your vacation, you came back feeling refreshed. Is there one thing that you can attribute your refreshment to? Like, was there one key thing that fed you in the way you needed?
Yeah, sometimes I've been on vacations before where they were so active. We had so much going on that you come home and feel like I need a vacation from the vacation I just
I've
had.
been there.
But this one actually was a pretty nice balance of doing and not doing. And there was so much car time. We drove for hours because we also visited some other friends in North Carolina. And that car time, those hours in the car were so restful for me.
Oh, that's great.
Just to let my mind wander. I did a lot of journaling. I did some writing. I just did some reading. Just talked with Troy. And I really think that really helped when I came home feel like I had truly rested. What about you?
Oh, that's great. Well, for me, it's interesting, and I don't want to embarrass my friend Sue. We have a lot of people in our community down in Tennessee who probably know her, but they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. She lives such a gracious life. And I know since you were there with me a year and a half ago, you've seen this. Music is a big part of her life. She listens to liturgical hymnography in her car, so it's always in the background when we're going somewhere. At home, she listens to soft jazz, piano music. We listen to a little Elvis. But there was always that nice, relaxing vibe, and she lights candles.
Yes, I remember that. I was going to say, I remember that.
Yeah.
And it was very calming.
Oh, very. And she has fresh flowers. She even had tulips in my guest bedroom and bathroom.
Oh, I love that.
So I guess looking at the way she lives, it really relaxed me.
Aww.
And it also brought to mind that I don't live that way. I mean, I'm living a non-gracious life. It just seems like I'm so busy, and really buying some flowers or lighting a candle or putting on some music is really not that difficult.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me that that's the way I want to live.
Yeah.
And it was so refreshing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
They're inspiring to me, just
good.
to hear it.
But I know that one of the issues with taking a vacation is that re-entry back into real life. Lots of emails, I had voicemails, I had chat messages from my clients, I had all kinds of stuff. And then the household, like the refrigerator.
Yeah.
What did you face when you came home?
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like that last day and a half of vacation, you start to get the dread a little bit, right? Because you're like, okay, now I've missed so much. I've not checked my email. I've not, I've really tried to truly get away, and now you're starting to feel like, oh, it's coming up. I gotta have to deal with all this stuff, and really just jump right back into it. And so I kind of planned ahead for that this time, and having that in the car ride home, I got my planner out and I did a brain dump, what we talk about. In our 6 weeks of sanity, and just everything that I was nervous about or that I knew was coming up, I just wrote it all down, got my planner out, and started assigning days and times to work on these things. And that really helped to have that planning period before I got home. And then the other thing that I intentionally worked on from 6 weeks of sanity was Pres Stacy's 20-mile march. Is that how you say it, right?
Yes, 20-mile march that she taught. Yeah.
So the idea that you every day do a certain amount, don't try to push yourself to do so much that you burn out, but that every day you are consistently doing something until you reach that finish line. And so when I came home, I looked at all I had to do, not only with work, but also with just with the house, my garden needed to be gardened. I needed to clean up my refrigerator, the laundry, and each day assigned, like yesterday was kitchen, clean out the refrigerator, clean the kitchen, just that.
Yeah, just that.
Just that. And I did it. It felt amazing, and did the work things I had to do. Now today, doing our show today, and I have laundry and bathrooms, just that.
Perfect.
And by the end of the week, I will have tackled all the things and get everything back in order in like a reasonable manner with the least amount of stress. So that's kind of how I handled it this year, and so far it's been good. Good.
And if you guys are interested in the 20-mile march, if you join our membership, this is actually a deep dive that Pres Stacy did in October, I want to say. So when you join the membership, you're able to go back on all the past deep dives, and you can really look into this, because I think it really changed the lives of a lot of our members.
Yeah, it's a really helpful concept.
Yeah, it's a new way of looking at things, and it keeps you from overwhelm.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is theosis and finding joy through theosis. And if you're not sure what that means, why don't we go ahead and talk about our lineup for today? First of all, for the Peaceful Mind segment, we have Barbara Pappas on. And Barbara is someone I interviewed on my podcast, and I would say that podcast got more responses than almost any other podcast I've given. She is so articulate in talking about theosis and our purpose in life and joy. We really think you're going to love meeting her today. And then also for the Healthy Body segment, we have Kiki Vale, and she is a dynamo. I think you're going to love Kiki. We're going to talk about essential oils, and I know that's a lot of people have a lot of questions about essential oils.
So I've been looking forward to this.
Good. Yeah, I always think of essential oils as God's medicine. He's definitely given us all kinds of plants and herbs, and we'll cover this later, but they're really great for our bodies. And then for the Productive Life segment, we are going to talk about
creative ruts.
Yes, creative ruts, which Molly and I have had creative ruts ourselves, so we know exactly how to answer that question. So without further ado, why don't we get into our Peaceful Mind segment?
Barbara Pappas has a Bachelor of Arts from DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois, with a concentration in early church fathers. She holds a Master's of Arts in Applied Orthodox Theology from the University of Balamand in association with the St. John of Damascus Institute of Theology and the Antiochian House of Studies in North America. She's the author of 3 books, which include Are You Saved? The Orthodox Christian Process of Salvation, which is now in its 6th edition and 12 languages. Today we brought her on to talk about theosis as a path to joy.
Hello, Barbara. Thank you for coming on our show. It's a delight to have you.
Good morning, Cynthia. Good morning, Molly. It's great to be with you.
So today we're talking about the theosis of joy. And I know that theosis is actually an Orthodox word that a lot of Christians may not even know what it means. So first, can we talk about what that word means?
Yes. Theosis means deification or sanctification. It's the process of becoming like God, which is our purpose for life. And what it does is restores the communion with God that Adam and Eve lost for us, for all of us, when they disobeyed. So it's a very important process. We know that God created us in his image with the potential to become like him. And we are depending upon the circumstances of our lives, our opportunities, our gifts, we actually have that possibility to become like God, to become holy, to partake of his holiness. So it's a very important thing. In Orthodoxy, we put less emphasis on being saved from Satan. We put less emphasis on the negative of being saved from Satan, more positive on the positive emphasis of being saved for Christ. So if as part of that, he invites us to partake of his holiness, to become holy like him, because we belong to him through baptism. And if we want to belong to him eternally, we have to be like him, to be in the holiness of his kingdom. So this is a synergistic effort. Theosis is synergistic between us and God. Our part is faith, but a faith that is lived, that's demonstrated by our lives. God's part is grace. He provides what we lack. But our faith cannot be words alone.
Yeah. I love that distinction you made,
Yeah.
Barbara, don't you, Molly? Mm-hmm. That's our focus is not to, on sin. The focus isn't on the bad, it's on the good. And that is definitely a difference with Orthodoxy.
Yeah, it reminds me actually of recently I read some writings by Father Stephen Freeman in which he talks about the durability of good, which I hadn't thought about before.
Yes.
Like I can spend so much time just avoiding sin, which isn't necessarily the same thing as doing good. Yeah. And I think that's, you pointed that out really well, there is a difference, in pursuing goodness and the positive.
Yes, and the more we fill ourselves with goodness, the less room there is for evil. It's just like I'm a gardener, so I have been a gardener till we moved. The more I could encourage good growth in my garden, the fewer weeds would come in because they didn't have any space. So it's encourage the good to eliminate the bad.
Yeah. So when we wake up in the morning, it's not how am I not going to sin today? It's what good can I do today?
Exactly. Very positive.
So there are three other words that are sort of associated with this, and I'm hoping that you can also delve into these. One is catharsis, another is theoria, and orthopraxia. Can you just talk a little bit about each of those?
Right. Catharsis is a purification of the mind, the body, and the soul. Theoria is contemplation, meditation, thinking about God for purposes of illumination. And orthopraxia is the practice of doing what is right, what is true. So putting our orthodoxy, our Christianity, into our lives. And to go a little further, I know I've been told that psychotherapists use this process of catharsis in the secular world in the sense of ridding oneself of inner conflicts by talking them out, by bringing them out in the open and out of our conscious thoughts into our conscious thoughts so we can get rid of them and the stress that they cause in our lives. But Orthodox psychotherapists go one big step further than that. They actually point to what they call the science of the fathers of the church, who guide us in this catharsis to reflect upon our spiritual condition, to see where we are in relation to God. The Greek word for sin is amartia, which means to miss the mark. So whenever we fall short of Christ's example, what he taught us through his life and through his teachings. If we fall short of that, we miss the mark. So it's, even that makes sin more understandable. When we have a goal and we miss it, that's what sin is. But sin creates a barrier between us and God, which threatens the attachment to him we have, the attachment we have to Christ through baptism. So just as when we argue with our spouse, our friend, our coworker, there's kind of a barrier built up between us until we reconcile that, until we talk about it and get rid of it. But the church goes further. It gives us the opportunity to remove that barrier through the sacraments of confession and frequent communion, so we can continue the process of theosis. So they're very important. Theoria, as I said, is coming to know God. First, we try to purify. They're not exactly consecutive. They're simultaneous at the same time. We try to become to know God, come to know him, so that through prayer for enlightenment, through spending time with him in meditation, and through reading, because the more we know about him, the closer we can come to him and to grow in his image. And in response, he reveals himself to the extent that we're ready. In other words, he knows when we're ready for certain things, when we've reached a spiritual point when he can reveal more of himself to us. So it's a very fascinating process.
Really is.
It
definitely goes both ways. Like it's a communication, right?
Right.
It's both working together,
Right.
you and God together in a relationship to achieve these things.
Right. And he speaks to us in response to our prayers. And that's why when I think you talk about your meditation, it's good to just listen, to be quiet sometimes, to talk to him in prayer, to read about him, to think about him, but then give him quiet time in order to talk to us. We can't expect to hear his voice audibly, but we do hear him. We know within ourselves that we've been enlightened. So it's a fascinating process.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful.
But
I think that something through, even during COVID, I felt that was the first time I really practiced the idea of contemplation. That was kind of a new, I knew about it, but that I actually practiced intentional stillness, just the listening. And it was pretty life-changing, I think. And I really I felt like I experienced a wholeness, like you said, more of a relationship than I had before, by including that into my everyday experience.
Yes, and even sometimes when I'm working on a project or something, I'll think about it, I'll work on it, I'll do what I can, and then I put it to rest, and things just pop into my head. Yeah. And, I know that's God enlightening me beyond myself. Yeah. So it's really a fascinating thing. But I wanted to say one thing, that in the book of Exodus, when God told Moses to go to Egypt to tell Pharaoh to free his people from slavery, Moses said to God, "Who shall I tell him sent me?" And God said, "Tell him the I am sent you." And that's important because we have to know that God is. He just is. He's self-existent. He's uncaused. He's uncreated. He's eternal. So when we talk about partaking, becoming like God, we can never partake of that. We can never become what he is intrinsically. But his omnipotence, omniscience, his omnipotence, did I say that? Omnipresence and omniscience, that remains his alone. But we can partake of his energies, that which flows from him to us, and that is his love, his compassion, his peace, his goodness, his mercy, his kindness. So it's through those divine energies, not through his essence, that we can become like him by grace. We become by grace what he is by nature. And the third one was orthopraxia, which means right practice. So once we learn about God, then he asks us to, and what he wants of us, he asks us to bring those values into our work, into our leisure, wherever we happen to be, to have patience, to be honest, to show empathy and love and concern for others, in other words, to live what we learn about God, what we know about God in every setting.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
beautiful.
that. It
Yeah.
is beautiful. And yeah, and we need to think of all those components.
Absolutely. I have another question. When you did your podcast with Cynthia, the Holistic Christian Life podcast,
Yes.
and we got so much response from it, I think one thing that stood out was you talking about our callings, our secular callings, our spiritual callings. Can you just talk a little bit about how those relate to one another and how we can discover what ours might be?
Right. Our secular calling, for some of us, is the manner in which we choose to make a living. But for a lot of people, there's more to that. It's our identity. It's what we're moved to do, to be in the world, the creative outlet, and to fulfill our dreams, our secular dreams. To find our secular calling, we identify our strengths, our talents, our skills, our gifts from God. We marshal them through education and experience, and we decide our worldly path in this world, what we're going to be. Our spiritual calling, theosis, to become like God, is the same for everybody. We all have the same calling. No matter what we are in the secular world, we're called to become like God, but it does take on a different focus for everybody. But our spiritual calling is in addition to our secular calling. It's over and above. It takes over where baptism and chrismation left off. Baptism puts us on the road to Christ. Theosis keeps us going along the road to Christ as we participate with it. Some people, like clergy and some laity, dedicate their whole lives to God. They're doing God's work. Most of us, however, act out our spiritual calling within our secular calling. They should overlap seamlessly. For instance, teachers in the secular world, they're good at critical thinking, problem solving, communication. These skills are gifts from God. And those same skills can be used to come closer to God and to bring others closer to God. So they can overlap in that way if we're conscious of that and make an effort to do that, to make our spiritual lives part of our secular lives in all that we do. And there should be no conflict between them. We can't be one way in church or home and be another way with our friends or the people we work with, because there's a disconnect there. That disconnect creates conflict. That conflict creates stress and inner turmoil, which threatens not only our physical and spiritual health, but it threatens the whole process of theosis. It thwarts theosis. So, for instance, talking about another secular calling, musicians can entertain the world with their gifts from God. But I'd love to be able to play an instrument for my own worship of God and meditation. But I can't, I don't. But it would be incongruous for a musician who also chants at church or sings in the choir to be part of a band, perhaps, that sings sexually suggestive lyrics or violent lyrics. So we have to make sure there's no conflict between our secular and our spiritual, because this stops theosis. It does not allow us to progress. It's another barrier between us and God.
That's interesting you say that, because a year or so ago I interviewed Jonathan Jackson. At the time he was on the TV show Nashville. And I asked him, as an Orthodox Christian, this is your profession, being an actor and a musician. As an actor and an Orthodox Christian, how do you know which roles to accept and not to accept?
Right.
Because there can be obviously a conflict there because of the secularism of television. And he did say that he doesn't mind playing someone who sins if the message is clear that that was detrimental to his life. And I thought that that was something good for all of us to remember when our secular and our spiritual lives sort of overlap each other, that first of all, we have to remember that our identity is in Christ, and then our secondary identity is maybe in what we do, but first Christ.
Right. That's an important distinction.
Yeah.
So yeah. We're called to be the light of the world and the salt of the earth. And we know that in ancient times they preserved food with salt. So when we try to preserve what the teachings of Christ and live them, and when we teach them, we are preserving the good from God, and we're bringing the light of Christ to the world. So we can all do that, but we have to think about it. Mm-hmm. We can't compartmentalize them, as we said last time.
And I liked how you talked about we need to prepare, like we need to first identify our gifts, be honest about our own personal strengths and weaknesses, be authentic to the personality, the talents that God gave us, and then to develop them. And like you said, educate yourself and work to to grow these gifts so that we can live out those callings that only, I can do with my specific gifts, or Cynthia can do with her specific gifts.
Right.
So that, and we can go out and be light. But I think a lot of times, I haven't always given myself that. Being able to take that very seriously, that it is important that I develop my gifts, that I don't hide my talents, but I put that effort in to be the best version of myself, so that I can also, to the best of my ability, spread that light, to be the source of light for others.
Yeah.
Right, and each of us is different. We're part of the body of Christ through baptism, but he asks us to be his eyes, his ears, his arms, his legs, his feet. Each of us has different gifts to be those things in the world. We don't all have to be the same. We're not carbon copies of each other. And so that's important. And the divine liturgy tells us at a certain point, the priest says, let us love one another. So he's calling us to love those in church, to love those at home, to love those at work, to love those when we're driving in the street, which is not always easy to do, but sometimes those who are the hardest to love are the ones who need God's love the most, and we can bring that love to the world.
Yeah,
it's not easy always, but it's good. That's why we meditate on these things and we practice them. We try to think about them so they become more natural to us.
Exactly. And I think that when we're able to do this, it brings joy into our lives. And
right.
I know that, recently we've seen in our community, we've seen in this world that joy has been at a premium. People are wondering how to bring joy back into their lives. But joy is different from happiness, right? So can you tell us about theosis and joy versus happiness?
Right. Happiness is a surface emotion. It's a more it's nice. It's nice when we're happy, but it's more of a surface emotion connected to externals about how we're feeling. Whereas joy is connected to deeper things, to deeper feelings that touch upon the eternal. The more they touch upon God and the eternal, the more joy we feel. For instance, happiness might be the byproduct of going to church in the sense of seeing friends and being in the coffee hour and things like that. That can be happy. It's happy for the day. But joy comes from being the church, to feeling the connection with God and to know that He's there for us. Not letting ourselves be distracted by the things that take us away from that joy. I know if things don't go well in my day, I may not be happy. But because I believe God exists and that he keeps his promises, I always feel that deep inner joy, because he's provided a way for us to have joy eternally through his resurrection and his crucifixion, his resurrection, and through the process of theosis, which keeps us going in that direction. So theosis is the path to joy on this earth and beyond.
Yeah.
It's good to be happy, but it's better to be joyous. It's good to have both.
Yes. Right.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Barbara, it was a real pleasure to talk with you again today, and I'm so glad that you and Molly were able to meet and that we were able to bring you to the Filled with Love community through this show. So truly, we appreciate your time, and I hope to see you again someday, hopefully in person.
Yes, that would be nice since we're neighbors.
Yes,
Yes, that's
absolutely. Well, you take care. You're in our prayers.
Thank you, and you're in mine.
Thank you.
You do a wonderful thing.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. We try. So, Molly, I think that you can see now why she had such a good response on the podcast.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, she takes these terms that are so beautiful, but words that can be a little intimidating, especially if you're new to, Orthodox spirituality, and she really puts them into kind of layman's terms in a way that's very accessible.
She really does. And I have to say, I didn't know what catharsis meant, even as far as how she described it, and that's so beautiful and reflects a wonderful avenue of personal growth, but in Christ.
Yeah.
I love that. It fits right in with holistic health.
Yeah. It's made me think a lot about, recently I've been thinking a lot, maybe just I was doing some writing about the whole idea of being in the world, but not of the world, and, being in the world, being engaged, educating ourselves, developing our gifts, really being fully alive, but also not of it, in that we are also not riding the same waves of anxiety and despondency, because we have this inner ongoing joy and hope.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that really goes together in our ability to do both so beautifully.
Absolutely.
And live a full, engaged life.
Yeah, and I love what she said about joy, because joy isn't happiness.
Right.
Joy isn't circumstantial.
Yes.
Joy is like the opposite of despair. Joy is the hope we have in Christ and in our salvation, and knowing that God is always present. He never leaves us, and we can carry that joy around in our heart. It doesn't have to be the bubbly, bouncing up and down, joyful thing that I think sometimes we associate with that word.
Yeah. Yes.
As Christians, we have that joy built in us.
Yeah. To me, it's like steady hope. That's what I think of joy as. Just the ability to, I think Dr. Rossi talks about when we go deeper and deeper into the lake. The more inward we are and the more content and calm we are, the further down the waves and all the things in the top aren't affecting us.
Yeah.
And that's what I think of as joy.
I love his analogy on that. Yeah, it's a visual. It's a great visual.
Yeah.
Well, next up we have our Healthy Body segment, and like I promised you at the beginning of the show, we're going to be talking to Kiki Vale. And like I said, she's a dynamo. You're going to love her. We're going to be talking about essential oils. And like I said before, they're God's medicine. So without further ado, let's welcome Kiki into our Healthy Body segment. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Kiki. She's a radio personality, an award-winning voiceover talent, seasoned speaker, and MC. She thrives on the microphone and in front of a live audience. She's the first female airborne news and entertainment and traffic reporter in Chicago, and she remains mesmerized by those pre-dawn sunrises witnessed during her morning shift in the early 90s. Kiki's on-air career spans over 15 formats, leading to the role of writer for various weekly newspapers. But in 2000, Kiki founded her brand called Kefi Life. It's a lifestyle which creates harmony in the mind, body, and soul the Greek way. As a journalist, entrepreneur, lifelong learner, and recent graduate of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is one of the schools I went to, she inspires one and all to live a fulfilling and healthy life. So let's bring Kiki on. Hey, Kiki, it's so good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
It is so exciting to talk with you again. And I know we covered a lot of things on the Holistic Christian Life podcast and that interview, but today we want to narrow in on your love for essential oils. So what got you so excited about essential oils in the first place?
First of all, I love essential oils, so this is really a treat for me to be able to share this knowledge with you. It was back in 2014. It was September 15th, 2014. I remember the day because I was starting a weight loss program. And the weight loss program was 12 weeks long. And each week there was an instructor who would talk about yoga or nutrition or oils. So each week was a different topic. One week, Jenny, I remember her name, Janine Gogley came in. She was a RN nurse to talk about the power of essential oils. And at the time, I'm like, oh, this hocus pocus, what's this all about? And I was like, but she said she was a nurse. So I thought, well, let me pay attention here. She started to talk about the oils. She wanted to, sell me some, and I kind of resisted, but I was in a lot of back pain. So I thought, let me just try this one product that helps back pain. So it was really that day, September 15, 2014, that I had met the nurse who was advocating for essential oils, that I was in pain, that I gave it a shot. And Deep Blue essential oil, it's a blend, was the entree into oils and my current love for what they do and how they help us heal.
Yeah, I've used Deep Blue myself. I really do like it, especially after a workout, to help with sore muscles and everything too. And don't you think, Kiki, that it's interesting that you say that you're wondering about the hocus pocus of it all. And I think that the essential oils industry, a lot of the people in that industry are kind of off there in the woo-woo and everything, but truly, this is God's medicine. He gave us all these plants and herbs and so many things to heal us, and this is just one way.
Absolutely. And to your point, if we believe that God is the creator of nature, nothing is wasted in nature. And if we look at the power of nature, then we can understand that this is real. Essential oils come from roots, bark, seeds, different aspects of plants and trees. And what comes from these aspects of the plant are called volatile chemical compounds. Those compounds not only protect the plant, but if it's transferred to us on the largest organ of the body, our skin, we too will benefit from those compounds. So it's real.
Yeah,
It's science. It's science.
Yeah. And you know what I like to drive home too now, because you talked about putting it on our skin. It's absorbed through our skin into our bloodstream, and that's how they have such great effects on us. But that's why we have to be so careful about things we're putting on our skin, because it absorbs everything, and it can either be for our good or to harm us, right?
Absolutely. Like even with like suntan oil and different sunscreens and different, makeup products, these products can be toxic. And I think we have to live a whole and well life so that these different aspects of wellness support the entire picture. So oils are one aspect of that picture. You just mentioned that there are ways that we can use the oil on our skin, and we have to be careful. I wanted to mention that there are 3 ways to use essential oils. Essential oils can be used aromatically, through fragrance, You can diffuse an oil. You can smell it. I just picked this out of my garden. It's called rosemary. It smells heavenly. So aromatically, or you can use it ingesting. You can ingest it. You can actually eat it, like frankincense you can put in your mouth for oral health. But you have to check oils to make sure that they are safe to put in your body. Not all oils are safe. Like Deep Blue would not be safe to ingest. Right. But there are plenty of oils like peppermint and orange that are. So aromatically, ingest, and topically. As you said, it can go on your skin and penetrate and go through the bloodstream and help us that way.
It's so funny. One of the interesting things when I was learning about essential oils is that one of the places that are most effective to put the oils are on the bottoms of your feet. And I didn't realize that the pores on the soles of your feet and on your toes are so absorbent and can affect your whole body.
Outstanding. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because oftentimes, because it travels up to your body, right up through your nervous system and through your blood system. And what I will do oftentimes, if my husband or anybody in my family is really wound tight and they had a tough day, I'll ask them to lay down, and I will take some frankincense with some coconut oil that's called a carrier oil and just rub their feet. And it's almost like magic how they just like calm down. And it's on the bottoms of their feet. Yeah, exactly.
I like to do that with little kids too.
Really?
To help calm them down. Yeah, of course, as you know, you have to be careful with essential oils and children and make sure that they're okay for children and use carrier oils to dilute them. But yeah, to calm a child down and get them to sleep and stop crying, it's wonderful.
I was just going to say what goes along with that is, and that's why I love oils also, is that touch and that affection and that love that we're sharing with the vehicle of the oil.
Yeah, that's all part of it. Absolutely. Yeah. So I know that people are listening right now and they've seen essential oils at the grocery store and they've seen them at the nail salon and they've seen them everywhere, right? It gets a little bit confusing, but you have to be really careful, especially if they're ones you're going to ingest. So can you tell everyone how to choose a quality essential oil?
Absolutely. You want to choose from a reputable source. So you want to make sure that the source, the oil that the source is coming from, the company, if you will, if you can't distill the oil yourself from the plant, then you need to trust the company. You need to look on the label and see if it's therapeutic grade. The word organic can get tricky, and there are a lot of different meanings for organic, but therapeutic grade means that oil has been distilled and processed at just the right moment for the oil to be fresh and to be applicable. No additives, no other fillers are in that oil. So those are the main things. I am an advocate for doTERRA essential oil. I know that Young Living also has some fantastic oils. I think that they're similar, but I do subscribe to doTERRA. I have a website if anybody wants to check out the oils. But basically, no additives, dark bottle. It shouldn't be in plastic. You should see that it's a therapeutic grade oil, standing solely on the beauty and truth of that oil from the plant.
Right, right. And like you, I love doTERRA and Young Living. There are a couple others I like also. And it's interesting because you'll take a bottle and let's say it's $30, but people have to keep in mind, right, that one drop is like equal to 100 plants or something crazy like that. So they last forever. But someone may go to the store and say, oh, well, Cynthia, I can get the same thing for, $10 or $8. Why would I spend that much? And it's all because of pureness and quality, because some of these companies, they do add other fragrances in with their oils, which is unfortunate.
Excellent point. And if it smells like a heavy synthetic cologne or fragrance, that means something has been added and it's not real. I've smelled some peppermint that smells heavy. It doesn't smell fresh and clean. And then I smell doTERRA's peppermint and it almost smells like you have a candy cane there with you. It's so potent. And when you're smelling it, that's all you smell is the peppermint. There's nothing else in that bottle.
Yeah, exactly. And again, so important if you're going to be ingesting the oil. So why don't you tell us your top 5 oils and why you love them so much?
Okay. I would have to say peppermint is right at the top of the list. Peppermint is so versatile. It's great for reducing migraine pain. It's great for sinuses. It helps with breathing. It's fantastic for focus. When my children were taking the SAT and the ACT, I would have them whiff some peppermint and put a little bit on their wrist. As a matter of fact, the gymnast in the Olympics, I think her name's Amanda Boyles or Simone, she would take peppermint and put it on her wrist and whiff it before she got on the bar. And she said that was for focus. And there are many Olympians who do use peppermint oil for focus. Next, I would jump to lavender. Lavender is a beautiful oil. It's a little bit heavy, in my opinion. It's a heavier oil, but it smells very fragrant. It's pretty. I have it in my yard, and it's a green plant with some little purple flowers, the lavender, and it's helpful for anxiety, reducing anxiety. If you have a burn, if you burned your hand, you can put a little bit of lavender with coconut oil on that burn every day, and it will help it to heal quicker. It's fantastic for relaxing. A lot of times I'll throw it in my tub with Epsom salt just to kind of unwind. Yeah. Next, I would have to say eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is, oh man, this one's a powerhouse. Eucalyptus is great for sinus problems, allergies, breathing, concentration, respiratory, and even memory. So peppermint and eucalyptus really great for memory and also for respiratory. Frankincense. Mm-hmm. How can we forget frankincense? It was given to Jesus when he was born, okay? Yeah. Frankincense. I used frankincense on my mom when she was going through cancer, and a lot of cancer patients will use frankincense to calm them down. It's really great for healing and for centering you and for warding off negative emotions. Frankincense is great for healing scars, wounds, and it's also good for acne. And no, that's tea tree oil. It's great for, because it's in my skincare line, skincare cream. Frankincense is good for wrinkles, for dissipating the wrinkles on your skin. Yes. So doTERRA has a skincare line that I use, and it has, most of them have frankincense in it, and I love it. It helps me so much. And then finally, tea tree, which is also called melaleuca, and that's great for warding off the bugs. Like if you have bugs that are coming through the little door, you can take some a bottle with tea tree and add water to it, and then spray it all the area where the bugs are. They hate the smell, and it just gets rid of them. And it's also good for scars and wounds. So I would say those are the top 5 that address many of the issues that people have.
I love that. I think it's interesting you brought up a couple that, like frankincense, I know it's an expensive oil, but like we said before, yes. One little dab and it'll last you a year or more actually. But
can I tell you something? You said the word expensive, and a long time ago I was talking to a friend of mine about healthcare and health, and I said, "Oh my God, Nancy, that's so expensive." She was working with a personal trainer, and she goes, "Kiki, I can either give my money to the hospitals or I can use it on myself to heal myself and take care of myself."
Yep.
So take your pick. Where do you want to throw your money?
I totally agree. It's like buying supplements. Like buy supplements now, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money, or buy prescriptions later in a lot of cases, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, where can people find you and your work? You do so much, so just let us know. Where are you at?
Well, the oils, thank you, by the way. The oils tie into the whole person wellness and my lifestyle brand. Kefi Life is my lifestyle brand that creates harmony in the mind, the body, and the spirit. The Greek way. Why the Greek way? Because we take from the lifestyle of the ancient Greeks and the Mediterranean lifestyle that supports people living into their 90s, so longevity. So the lifestyle brand, Kefi Life, now has a podcast hosted by me, and I'd love for folks to jump on over to mine as well. It's just called Kefi Life on your favorite listening app. I also have a website tied in with doTERRA. If anyone is interested in trying oils and they would love to dive in, they can email me from this site. They can ask me a question and I can guide them, and they can receive essential oils. And the website is my.doterra.com/Kefi Life.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then also, didn't you say on my podcast that you're wanting to put together a retreat to Greece? I hope you're still planning that.
Yes. And it's funny how God works, because I connected with somebody in Greece over Instagram that I met when he toured us around Athens, and I just reached out to him to interview him about the history of Greece. And I said, what are some of the spots in Greece that you recommend? And then, of course, I have spots. So, yes, I am considering that. I have to see how much work it's going to be. And then I have to decide which island. You've got Kos, where Hippocrates is from. You've got Ikaria, which is where the blue zones happen with longevity. You've got Crete, where the food is magnificent. I mean, anywhere you go, if you're near the water and the springs, I think you're good. But I'll keep you posted.
Yes, because wherever you are, I'm there.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. I really hope we can make this happen in like August, September of 2022.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Well, Kiki, it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much again for joining us, and I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your summer and a beautiful day today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. God bless you, and I really appreciate it.
Bye-bye. So I told you she's vivacious, isn't
Man,
she?
I love her energy.
She has a lot of energy.
She's
Great.
does.
I don't know what her secret is. Must be essential oils.
Maybe it's essential oils because I'm going to get some if that's the case.
I loved how lavender was one of her favorite ones. And, my husband is kind of skeptical about some things. And I think essential oils is one of the things. And I think a lot of husbands might be skeptical about these oils. But one Thanksgiving, he burned himself on the oven, taking the turkey out, and I rushed over, grabbed my lavender oil, and started putting it on his arm. And the pain went away, and it healed up within a day. I mean, it was miraculous. He couldn't believe it. He was an essential oils person ever since then.
And I've heard stories like that. Even recently on vacation, we stayed with some old friends from college, and they use essential oils, and they had some pretty amazing stories about using it as well. So I was so excited that you were having Kiki on this month because I was just starting to think about it, and I really love that she started with her top 5.
Yeah.
Just to give like a starting point, because a field like that, when you're not used to it, it just seems overwhelming. Like there's so many, and just to kind of dabble in it seems like intimidating. So I love when people start with, here's my top 5.
Yeah, there are hundreds of essential oils, so you could really go crazy. I think I have, 40 or 50 at home that I use.
Wow.
And I have, I call them my little medicine chests. I have one downstairs, I have one upstairs, and that's what I grab instead of medicine or instead of bug spray or instead of when I make my cleaning products.
Oh, yeah.
I use the essential oils.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm very intrigued, for sure.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions about essential oils that maybe weren't answered?
Well, let's see. I mean, I think that, like I said, just knowing where to begin, I think that was my biggest question. If someone was just going to, for the very first time, try it, like what would be the biggest impact oils that would cover the most situations, And mostly we're talking about like sleep, stress. I said my husband does skateboarding, does weightlifting, does soccer, so a lot of sore muscles at our house. So those are I keep trying to think what are the main ailments that we'd be wanting to use essential oils for. Yeah. So that really was helpful.
Good.
Just to kind of hear how those, maybe where to start in those areas.
Another one that doTERRA makes is called Digest Zen. It's a blend, and again, my husband, when he has some gas or bloating, stomach issues, just a couple dots on his belly, and the pain goes away. So that's another good one.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to look into it.
Yeah. Good. So we are going to be talking about the productive life next. We have a wonderful question that was posed to us, and Molly and I have had the same experience, and we have just the answers.
So today's community question is, what are some ways to inspire creativity and productivity when you feel stuck?
We've been there.
Oh, absolutely. We have talked about this. Yes.
We have. And so much of what we do, Molly, is creative, our writing and everything we do. But I'm also thinking that it takes creativity just to do problem solving. So really,
everyday life, right? No matter what your career, or if it's creative in nature or not.
Exactly. Everyday life. So we have some ideas of things that we do that we want to share with you.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
You go first.
I'll go first. Okay. Well, one of the things I like to do is called creative rest. And I learned this from a podcast guest I had on. Her name is Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. She wrote a book called Sacred Rest, and she talks about 7 types of rest, and one of them is creative. And I think I might have mentioned this on a past show, But I often am my most creative when I'm out on a hike or on a walk or in the shower or just somewhere where I don't have to be on and pushing myself to think. And that's when some of your best ideas come. So to make sure that I have that creative rest every day kind of helps me escape overwhelm and get through the day and come up with new material and problem solve, and it's really helpful. Another one is morning pages, and if you're not familiar with morning pages, this is something we actually taught in 6 Weeks to Sanity. It was made popular by Julia Cameron. She's the author of The Artist's Way. She's written over 40 books. And speaking of creativity,
Yeah, right.
she must have a lot of creative rest in her life. But what morning pages is, and I'm going to read you a little bit from her website because she puts it so well. Morning pages are 3 pages of longhand stream of consciousness writing, done first thing in the morning, although I do it any time of day because it just helps reset me. She says there's no wrong way to do it. It's not a high art. It isn't even writing. You write about anything and everything that crosses your mind. They're for your eyes only, so no one's going to read this. They provoke, clarify, comfort, cajole, prioritize, and synchronize the day at hand, so you don't overthink it. You just keep writing. So it's everything from boy, that table is dusty, to, did I call the dentist? To, boy, I need to have a serious conversation with somebody. And then sometimes just that free-form writing turns into something where you're able to problem solve and you didn't even realize it until you started writing it out. This has been a life changer for me.
Wow, yeah, those are really good ones. And I was thinking about the creative rest, how I sat in the car on my vacation, I had all that time just to sit.
Yes.
And I do feel like I had some breakthroughs on some ideas for Filled with Less, on some of my own just like personal conundrums, that I just was able to kind of look at from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree. I think sometimes getting out of the busyness, whether it be a walk and just letting your mind rest, really does provide some inspiration. That's awesome. And the writing too, because I realized there was years and years ago where I was regularly blogging. And when I was writing regularly, just like in the habit of writing, just kind of thinking and getting those on paper, I do feel like it was one of my more creative periods of time. I think that really did help. So those are really good ones. I would add the importance for me of beautifying my workspace. So when I was a kid, I felt like my mom would change the furniture in our living room like seasonally, at least 4 times a year.
Really?
And I loved it. And I think it just gave her like a new lift on life, a new love for her space. And so I kind of grew up with the idea of, if you feel stuck, change it. You don't have to move houses. You don't have to do anything big, but even just look at where you're working, beautify it. Put a plant in there. Even like move around where your files are. Maybe get a new organizing system, and for sure clear out the clutter. Make sure it's clutter free, and sometimes that's just enough to spark creativity. So that's what I would say is my go-to. If I'm kind of stuck in a rut, just change things up a little bit.
This is so funny because I'm realizing that you inherited this from your mom.
Oh, yeah.
Because Molly's mom is one of the most creative people I know.
She is very creative, yes.
And if she was constantly doing this,
Yes.
no wonder. So you inherited that from her.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, it's a good example. And it's something that I didn't really embrace until much later in life. And now I see parts of her just coming to me as I get older.
Yeah.
The ways that she has been able to stay creative and stay content are ones that now I draw from later in life. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
thankful for that.
Yeah, very thankful. Well, that's the end of our show for this month, but there are ways that you can stay in touch with us. And as always, there's our course, right, Molly?
Yes, so our 6 Weeks to Sanity course is available now any time of year at your convenience. And you can go to our website at fillwithless.com to register. This has been life-changing for a lot of people, continues to be life-changing for me. So check that out if you're really serious about looking for ways to get a fresh start.
Yeah,
in
a
your
fresh
life.
start, a reset. And then there's our membership community, the Living Every Day with Sacred Simplicity membership. And this month we were doing a deep dive into bringing more happiness into your life. And I think that this was a beautiful deep dive. We have our live session in a couple weeks at the end of the month. It isn't too late to jump in if you want to do that. So make sure you take a look at our membership at filledwithless.com if you want to be part of this community in a more active way.
And then finally, we have our book club, Filled with Less Book Club. I love our book club. This month we are reading The Road Back to You. And this is a primer on the Enneagram.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with this. I have heard of it. So I've really been enjoying learning more about it. We are going to be discussing this book on July 31st, I believe.
Yes.
At noon Central Time. It's going to be a great discussion, I think. And so if you go to, again, our website, fillwithless.com, scroll down till you see the book club, you can register, and we would love to have you join us.
Absolutely. And what I love about this book, Molly, you and I were talking earlier, it's a personality test in a way, but it's more in depth than that. It has Christian roots, which I love. And the book could be pretty dry, but Ian Cron writes in a humorous way, and he uses storytelling, and it's a delight to read. Everyone's really enjoying reading it. So
it's very engaging. Yeah, I think you'll love it.
Yeah, a lot of counselors, Christian counselors, recommend this book for their patients because it helps them figure out how to work with them. And I do the same thing in my practice. I often have my clients take the Enneagram test so that I know how to be the best coach for them. So it's really a great tool.
Yes.
Yeah. So with that ends our show for this month. We look forward to seeing you next month. We hope you join us. And in the meantime, take care. You're in our prayers.